Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lucha Underground Luchador Spotlight. On our last episode, we covered a man who's in no short order for heart, that being Mascarita Sagrada. And tonight, we're going to be talking about someone who I think really stands out compared to pretty much everybody else in the temple, in that everyone is this dark, gritty, down to earth character, and then out comes Pimpinela Escarlata, and the entire temple turns into a party.
Yeah, Pimpinela Escarlata, we think of words like fiesta or festive. That seems to be kind of what Pimpinela, kind of embodies. It's always kind of like an upbeat mood when she's around, this whole gimmick, all the mind games. Really, if you had to draw a parallel, so you can get kind of an idea, I've always thought that that's Lucha Underground's answer to Gold Dust in Pimpinela Escarlata.
Oh, yeah.
That's what immediately comes to my mind.
Except it's 2015 and not the mid 90s, so people don't hate him slash her for having ambiguous sexuality.
Exactly. And it'll be interesting to kind of talk about that in the first season and just any ideas we have for the second. I do have one idea. I'm going to preface it by saying it may be a bit groan worthy to some, but I'm hoping maybe we can, massage out any kinks and really make something worthwhile for Pimpinela's second season. So, yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I mean, let's just start things off talking about what Pimpinella did in season one. Another example, like with Sagrada, didn't really do a ton. They were just a few matches, and they really were kind of tied at the hip at a certain point too, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely, because you'd have matches where they'd share, whether they'd be trios matches or whatever. So, yeah.
So Pimpy's debut was against Son of Havoc, and this was during Son of Havoc's whole run of going against people that he doesn't see as equals and still losing because of it. So this was Pimpy's big match, and actually, if I remember correctly, Pimpy won this match.
Yeah, she did. Because again of Evilise and getting like overly involved.
Yeah.
I think also wasn't this the match where Masquerita Sagrada had a run in? So like
Yeah,
there was
yeah,
like a
yeah,
whole bunch
yeah,
of
he did.
commotion. Yeah, so
Serrata ran in, and then Pimpy won with a kiss.
yeah, there you go. So
So then this was on episode 7, I believe, 6 or 7, somewhere around there. And then, of course, Pimpy was in the 10-man battle royal, the 10-way battle royal involving Pimpy and Ricky Mandel and Sexy Star, the one that Mil Muertes went on to win.
right.
So then we got in episode 11 the first instance of Pimpy teaming up with Mascarita, which obviously they were kind of linked earlier because Mascarita helped Pimpy to win her first match against Son of Havoc.
Right.
So then we get Pimpy and Mascarita teaming up to take on Cortez Castro and Mr. Cisco, the crew, and they do win. So obviously, this was not a great night for Pimpy and Mascarita, but this was also the scene where the crew burned out Big Rick's eye.
Yes. I love that you laughed so I wouldn't have to.
Well, you still did anyway. So,
It was great.
so then on a few episodes later, on episode 15, was the big, the first kind of night in the trios tournament, I believe. Maybe not. No, it wasn't. This wasn't the trios tournament yet. This is just where Cueto tells the crew to get rid of these freaks and these rejects, and it ends up being Sexy Star, Pimpy, and Mascarita. And of course, because of the distraction from Big Rick, Sexy Star is able to overcome a 3-on-1 disadvantage that was created by the crew singling out Pimpy, injuring her, and then singling out Mascarita, injuring him. Big Rick comes out to the top of the stairs, distracts the crew. Sexy Star gets the big roll-up victory on Bale, and Pimpy and Mascarita both get their first. Oh no, not their first. For Pimpy, at least, it was her second. I don't know. Is it? You tell me, John. What do you refer to Pimpy? Is Pimpy a he or a her?
I feel more comfortable referring to Pimpinela Escarlata as a her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, we know it's that it's a dude, but the whole idea is that it's what's the word?
It's like a fluidity with gender to me.
Exotico.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
That's the word for it. So let's just stick with the feminine. What are they?
Pronoun.
Pronoun. Thank you. Yeah. So this was her second win. I think Mascarita did not beat Havoc, did he?
Did not mean I don't think so.
I think Son of Havoc beat Mascarita, but then Pimpy beat Son of Havoc.
No, I think Masquerita did beat Son of Havoc, actually. Yeah, he
Oh, that's
did.
right. Son of Happy Sexy Star. That's what it
Right, yeah.
was.
Yeah, he won that
That's
one match, but
right.
then he went on like a big like losing streak.
Losing
So yeah.
streak because of Evil East. That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so now we get to Pimpy and Mascarita's second win of the season, and it was this 3-on-3 match against the Crew. Thanks to Sexy Star, let's not make any kind of bones about it. But then we don't see Pimpy anymore after that because this was also the match that she got injured in. This was she and Mascarita both got injured in this match, and we didn't see them again until episode 31
Right. And
because that was the big kind of debut of Bengala.
right. And this was at the same time
Disciples
they
of Death.
Disciples of Death. Yes, and we all know how that turned out. In fact, for Pimpinela in particular, she was the one that received the lick of death
Which
from
was
Katrina.
horrifying because of all the makeup she wears.
Yes.
Katrina getting that all up on her tongue just really grossed me out.
Yeah, me as well, my friend, me as well.
Anybody who grew up with a mom that wore makeup knows what it's like to have that little bit of taste when you like kiss their cheek or something like that. And Katrina full on licked it. Like, oh,
Yeah, man. Ugh.
it's horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was actually the last we saw of Pimpy was that match and that lick of death. So we've seen multiple times the lick of death doesn't literally mean that the person is dead because we've seen so many times where somebody got lick of death and then came back later on in the season. So that's not a death sentence like what closing the coffin might be that we don't know
Right.
about. But John, what do we have planned just as far as Pimpy goes in season 2? Because I do think she'll still be around. I really enjoy the energy that she brings to the temple. I want to see something happen with Pimpy in season 2.
I do too, and here's my thing. Okay, John, you're gonna have to take the plunge because I've been actually thinking a lot about this more than what might actually surprise
Well,
people.
let's just address something that we've already discussed. Pimpy and Masquerita teaming up to find Sexy Star, save Sexy Star
Yes,
from Marty.
yes, and I'm still completely on board with that. So I am gonna reiterate that in full. If you guys want that more in depth, I would suggest going back to our Masquerita episode. But pretty much,
Yeah,
yeah, you had the idea just to kind of give rehash one thing of Pimpinella kind of being like this PI, go into places, bringing that energy and everything else.
like a
I
vice
love that
cop.
idea. Like a vice cop. That was the exact term you used. Here is where I take the plunge because I don't know how this is going to be received, but I've been
Oh
thinking a
boy.
lot about this,
Okay.
and I'm thinking, oh please don't groan. I think when you look at what Pimpinela Escarlata represents, Lucha Underground, I think culturally is in the right place at the right time because I think the culture is kind of shifting a little bit where it becomes less taboo. You even said at the beginning, it's not the 90s anymore. It's more accepted what Pimpinella kind of represents.
Right.
You see in shows like, I'm not saying that Pimpinella is a transgendered character, but you see shows that highlight transgender people. On American Horror Story, the latest season that I'm watching with my family, American Horror Story Hotel, there's a character, Liz Taylor, that is a guy, but he refers to himself in the feminine pronouns. He feels feminine, dresses up in feminine clothing. So it is becoming, I think, more of a culturally accepted thing. I would like Lucha Underground to capitalize on that. I would like personally, and this is where my mind first went, I would like to see Pimpinella maybe find romance this season, and we do kind of a romance angle. Because I think so often when she plays the mind games and she does what she does, like people are so repulsed or like freaked out or just one of those reactions. I think it would be interesting to explore somebody that's more receptive to it, and maybe she does kind of find kind of a partner, however you would want to put it in the second season. I think that would be an interesting route to go, and if not that, just something that I think explores more what Pimpinela Escarlata is about and just really takes advantage of this time and place in our culture. So that's just really where my mind has been going like all day thinking about this. So, I mean,
Okay.
what do you think?
I you know what? I don't like it, but for a completely different reason than what you might expect.
Okay.
The only reason I don't like it is because to me, what's great about Pimpinela Escarlata is that the sexual ambiguity isn't necessarily what defines her. I mean, don't get me
Right.
wrong. It's obviously out there and nobody's going to deny it, but
Right.
I don't want to make the sexuality the
Her
defining
core
trait.
identity. Yeah, I see what you're
Exactly.
saying. Yeah, so you
So
don't
I
want to
don't
like
want, and another thing is we don't. I like the idea of her sexuality being ambiguous rather than because if she has some kind of romance, is it going to be with a guy or a female? And then if you answer that question immediately, we know okay, well she's into insert gender here.
And and I think that could lend itself to a whole nother discourse that I don't think is appropriate for a wrestling forum.
Although, you know what,
You know?
that being said, I think that we actually did have an instance in season 1 where um I think she went up to Evilise, grabbed her by the face, and then threw her away and turned around and went to find a guy.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that it's pretty clear that she's definitely into dudes, but still, I don't want that to be her defining trait. Like, I don't want
Right,
Pimpinela Escarlata to have this tag, Pimpinela Escarlata, gay wrestler. I just want it to
right.
be like, okay, well, okay, she's very flamboyant. She's got this exotico thing going on. I don't necessarily think that it makes a ton of sense to go in the romance direction.
Okay, and that's fair
I think
enough.
using her sexual ambiguity as like a cool way to ward off heels, like that could work, and that's
Right.
kind of what she does already. But
Yeah.
turning it into a romance angle, I'm not feeling that.
I just, if not a romance angle, because to be honest, you could even tell I wasn't even 100% on board with that either.
Right?
I'm just
Yeah.
trying to think outside the box, because I think the thing with the series is we try and give everybody something. I mean, you know how ready I was to kill Superfly off. But, we always try, and then you brought me back into the fold with your idea of how we could use Superfly. We're always trying to give people something. I would just like to see her get a backstory like everybody else. And it doesn't even have to
Yeah,
make the
I like
sexuality,
that,
the
and I mean,
femininity.
we even talked about how, oh, it's 2015, not the mid 90s. Well, it's not like Pimpinela Escarlata didn't come into existence until
2015. Yeah.
sexually ambiguous people became more accepted by the majority of the populace.
Exactly. And maybe that's what I'm
What
trying
did
to
she
get at.
have to overcome to get where she is now?
Exactly. I just feel like you don't have to make it her core identity. I think what I'm trying to say is I think you've got a character here that I think is reflecting a progressive point again in our culture.
Right.
And I think in some vein you have to take advantage of that because what do we always say about some of the best gimmicks in wrestling history is that a lot of them have their finger on the pulse. And I think they have a very and they being Lucha Underground have a very unique opportunity to steal a Dario Cueto term to have their finger on the pulse, but in a way that I don't think most people would accept. I'm not asking people to hammer it in or have her wear a neon sign, like you said, gay wrestler or this and that, but tell the story. I think, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear her story, and then she could just, go about her business, being that vice cop, helping her friend, freaking out heels and all that stuff. But I think if you give her that story, there's going to be more of a weight behind
And
actions that before just seem, purely comedic.
right, and I
So,
think that the reasoning behind the vice cop thing, I think that works even more because Pimpinela Escarlata is Spanish for Scarlet Pimpernel, which is actually a play.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
the Scarlet Pimpernel is actually a play. It's like a um it's almost like I'm just going to tell you what it says on the Wikipedia page, the original hero with a secret identity.
Oh, okay.
So it's almost like a precursor to like a Bruce Wayne kind of character or Zorro, that kind of thing.
Interesting. Interesting. See,
So
I was not aware of this.
so that's
Yeah.
why I think the Vice Cop makes sense because obviously you have to be undercover for that.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. I love that. Now that you've told me that, because I think that really casts like a whole new light on it. I loved it before. I think it's really perfect now when you've got that kind of backstory. Yeah, I love the Vice Cop idea, and I would just love, even if it's just one vignette
And
that
it
just
doesn't
kind of
even
glosses over
necessarily
her
have to be
history.
Vice. I just said Vice because I mean, let's be honest, she already kind of dresses that way to begin with, so it wouldn't be that much of a jump.
Right.
But
I like the
but I mean,
term.
even just like undercover, like I think it would be interesting to see Pimpinela Escarlata dressed up like Bruce Wayne, like 3-piece suit, like dressed up like a dude. That would be interesting to me. Just as like that's what she looks like when she's undercover, but her real self is what we see in the ring, completely opposite to what you'd expect.
Yeah, and maybe you
It's
could
like a
even
freaking like Superman and Clark Kent. Like this is the real her, but when she dresses up, she looks like regular, everyday, average Joe.
and maybe Marty the Moth and cheerleader Melissa, if that is the woman playing the role of his sister,
Yeah,
they could go back and they could watch the tape and maybe there could be an episode where they put it together like Mother of God, they're the same person,
yeah.
and do all that. No, I that's why I really like that we already kind of set up for Pimpinela, at least for one of the main stories, the whole search for Sexy Star. We made her a part of that. I just know that, like we did for Masquerita being the whole giant killer, we like to have a separate story as well. So I think just the idea, even if Pimpinela gets one vignette kind of glossing over her history and how she
Yeah,
came
I
to find
love
out.
that idea too. The idea of giving her more of a background, giving her more of a backstory, kind of explaining, this is a character that she's been playing since the early 90s, and back then she was loathed and hated for it, but she stayed true to herself, and now people love her for it.
Exactly. That's all I'm really looking for, because I think, the saying goes,
And that's
people.
not even a work. That's legit. She's been playing this character since like 1990.
Right. No, I love that idea because, I mean, as the saying goes, people fear what they don't understand. And there may be people in this day and age that see somebody come out and be like, well, I don't know how somebody could be an exotico or this and that. But if you tell the story, you dispel that ignorance. And it's not, I don't want to conflate that with making the story the core part of her identity. But if you give her that backdrop, I think it gives all of her actions more meaning. So, yeah, I would personally love that for her in season 2.
Yeah. I love that, man. So do we have anything else for Sexy Star, or wow, for Pimpinela Escarlata, or are we ready to close this out and hype up our next episode?
We can close this out and hype up our next episode, my
All
man.
right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a lot of fun, and we really do kind of have to get creative with some of the characters that we're a little bit less familiar with. Like, if we want to talk about Johnny Mundo, we can talk about Johnny Mundo for years. But
Yeah, we can.
wow, that was like the most exhaustive laugh I've ever heard of it.
Oh my god, it's just so true though. It's just
But
so true.
right though, but that's because we're very familiar with him and his character, and John specifically is very familiar with the performer because you
I
kind of
love him.
followed him throughout everything. But with Pimpinella and with Mascarita and with a lot of the people that are just from AAA that didn't get a ton of background in season 1, we have to work a little bit harder because we don't know as much about them. But I think that what we came up with for Pimpy and Mascarita are both very interesting. Mascarita, the giant killer, Pimpy, the undercover detective trying to help find Sexy Star. I think that that's really compelling stuff. But up next, we are going to be talking about another character that we're also unfamiliar with, but somebody that we have a little bit more kind of meat to work with because it's a very kind of out there character that we're a little bit more familiar with, Bengala.
Oh, Bengala is going to be very interesting. And Ashton, if I may, real quick, before you take us home, I just wanted to thank everybody that watched and commented on our trailer breakdown
Yeah, we
recently.
love talking to you guys about that kind of stuff, man. Like, and that's another thing too is we realized thanks to I'm gonna have to look it up who exactly it was that said it first. But as it turns out, the sniper character in the desert, in the possibly the Middle East, we don't know about that for sure, is Killshot. And the reason we found out is because if you go to Shane Strickland, it's the guy that plays Killshot. If you go to his Instagram, he's posting images of himself in that gear saying like, are you guys ready for season 2 and ready for more Killshot and that kind of thing. So it is Killshot.
I think his stock may have gone up for me exponentially because that is badass. Like, I'm going to be watching him with a close eye. But guys, keeping on focus.
Shariah Pender is the one that originally said that it was Killshot.
Well, thank you, because again, continuing in the vein of why I brought that up, just all the views and the likes and the feedback. I mean, the conversation that some of you started, especially again that Shariah Pender. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, well,
With
there were a lot of people that said that it was Killshot, but Shariah Pender was the first person to reference that it was Shane Strickland's Instagram that kind of gave it away.
Yeah, so many of the comments were quite illuminating and engaging, and you guys are just amazing. And I just wanted to take this time to really thank you for all that feedback, all of that support, because we had so much fun breaking down that trailer, and just the reception that we got for it blew me away. So thank you
Yeah,
guys
I'm
so
kind of
much.
tempted. Like, I know that this is a wrestling channel, but I'm kind of tempted to do a breakdown of the X-Men Apocalypse trailer too, just because it looks amazing.
Yeah, it really does. It really
And I
does.
feel like that's like the one movie that's gotten a lot of trailers, or not a lot of trailers, a lot of hype that it seems like nobody is super duper excited about, and I'm over here losing my mind.
Yeah, yeah, I've
Have
noticed
you
that. I'm
noticed
tell.
that? Like, it seems like a lot of people are really kind of iffy on that movie, and like, there's a lot of hype for Civil War and Suicide Squad, and rightfully Deadpool, and of course, what's the other one that got a trailer?
Batman versus
DC,
Superman. Yeah,
Batman versus Superman. Yeah,
yeah,
there
that's the
there
one.
was a lot of hype for all of those trailers, but the X-Men Apocalypse one, like, I saw that and my jaw was on the floor.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, on my Facebook personally, but then again, you know that a lot of people I'm friends with are more DC people. The big hype has been Batman versus Superman, and I'm just sitting over here like, I hate Superman. Batman, I'm cool with. But that whole X-Men Apocalypse trailer though looks badass. If you guys haven't seen it, I strongly recommend you guys check it out. It
So,
was amazing.
yeah, I mean, if anybody is really, really interested in us doing that, maybe Maybe we'll use another channel rather than putting it up on this one, and then we'll just link to it in another video.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds good to me. Comment down below, guys. I mean, let's keep the conversation going. We love hearing from you guys. You guys are the best. We love you so much. Just thank you always for all the support.
And as usual, we will see you all for our next episode. However, because Thursday is Christmas Eve, we will not be putting a new episode out on Thursday. We're going to skip that day entirely. And our next episode, of course, covering Bengala, will be up on Saturday. But still, stay tuned for NXT tomorrow night.